What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to tackle, it seems sort of elementary, but it's not. The difference between a Telecaster pickup and a Stratocaster pickup and why they sound so different. There's a lot of, various conjecture and various things that you hear on forums and stuff as to why a Telecaster and a Stratocaster sound so different. Oh, this one's mounted to plastic, that one's mounted to metal. Oh, the magnetism around the all that crap. It's a bunch of crap. I'm going to show you the real architectural reason and the electronic reason why these two pickups, like for example, the bridge pickups in this or the neck pickups in this, are so completely different. Even though they look very, very similar, we're going to dive into it, and we're going to do it a little different. Sometimes a lot of folks will just show them next to each other, but what I'm going to do is actually take you through the manufacturing of each of them, and we're going to show you structurally from the beginning to the end all the differences as we make them so you understand each of the differences. So let's go on the bench, and I'm going to show you where these pickups start off, the similarities, how they start off, but then where they start to kind of diverge and be completely different. Before we get started, do me a favor, hit the like button and the subscribe button. If you're new to the channel, we talk about technical guitar stuff like this all the time. The other thing I want to mention is if you go to DylanTalksTone, the little scanny thing there at the bottom of the screen, we're actually having a pre-Black Friday sale this week. If you're watching this video the day it comes out, Black Friday 2025 week-ish, 10% off basically everything on the website and free shipping over 200 bucks. So pretty cool. So go ahead and check that out. You don't have to do any discount codes or anything. It's automatic. As we go over to the bench, one thing I want to talk about is sound samples. So there will be people already in the comments being like, this doesn't have a sound sample, so this is a useless video. That's not the point. The point of when you found this video was, yeah, Telecasters sound so different than Stratocasters. You already know. We're going to find out why. Not how they sound. You already know that. That's why you're here. So why? Okay, so let's start off with what a Strat or a Telecaster pickup is made from. This is called 4-bond material, and what this is it's basically a paper that has been impregnated with rubber. And most of the Telecaster and Stratocaster flat work, this comes from this was like what they used to insulate between things back in the 30s and 40s and 50s, and it just works great. This is 90 thousandths thick, and the tops are 62 thousandths thick, something like that. It comes in big sheets, and then we actually cut it here with a laser in the shop. You may have seen the YouTube shorts of us doing that. Then the next thing we need to do is we need to press some eyelets into here, which is not exciting. I'll just press those eyelets in so that we can solder wires to it later. Now, there are many professional ways to do this, but I'm just going to show you the most rudimentary basic way. We take these magnets that are 187 thousandths in diameter, and these ones are 0.650 inches thick, or tall, and we take it like this, and these are friction fit, and we press them in like so, and then we repeat that 5 more times. So now we've got that. Now we take the top, and we go ahead and press him on. All right, so there is a Telecaster bridge bobbin. Obviously the shape is different, and you don't get to see that from above the guitar. The reason this is shaped this way is because it's a holdover from a lap steel guitar before there were electric guitars like we know now. So now let's go ahead and do a Stratocaster pickup, because this, if you've seen pictures of Stratocaster pickup bobbins, that might seem very similar. And at this point, it kind of is. So for this one, we have a little jig because we're going to show you where this sort of diverges. So now here is the first spot where the Telecaster and the Stratocaster pickup diverges, because we have this, right? And they look kind of the same. Yes, it looks a little lopsided. Don't worry about it. We're going to fix that in a minute. But see, they look basically the same. Maybe just a little bit different size, but they look basically the same. But here's where it starts to get a little different. I'm sure you've seen this in the past, is when you look at a Strat pickup, the magnets stick out the top, which doesn't seem like that big a difference. But in the grand scheme of tones, it is. So if we use the same size magnets for both pickups, you'll see now that that coil is just a little bit shorter. It might not seem like a lot of a difference, but coil height, coil dimension is a very big deal. In fact, if you were to use longer or shorter magnets here, or make this distance from here to here shorter or taller, even this Strat pickup would sound different to another Strat pickup. So even this small difference in height will make a big difference in tone, even if we were to use the same exact whine count, same everything else, but just change that height just a little bit. Now, the same thing also applies to the string spacing, because if you'll notice the string spacing, this coil is longer, right? If we look at a neck pickup on a Telecaster, it is actually shorter, right? So coil dimension is completely different between these two pickups. Again, this might not seem like a big deal, but in pickup making land, we make small adjustments like that and it completely changes everything. All right, so now that we've got that, the coil dimension kind of explained, now we go ahead and we look at the pickup when it's wound. So let's take the bridge pickup. This is a Telecaster bridge pickup, a Telecaster bridge pickup and a Stratocaster bridge pickup. Obviously, besides the dimension differences that we already discussed, right? One's taller, one's shorter, one's longer, one's shorter in lengthwise from end to end. Even if we were to put the same exact whine count with the same exact wire, they would sound different just in this state right here, right? And so they just kind of start to diverge in design. Same thing with the neck pickup. Now the neck pickup's interesting because it is sort of an afterthought to the guitar. This was actually an addition later. And because of size constraints, because obviously it's very small in comparison to the other two, now we use a 43 gauge wire on this pickup and we use a 42 gauge wire on the rest. Lower number being a fatter wire, right? So we take a skinnier wire and we were able to fit more winding on it. In fact, these two are the same exact whine count with different wire gauges, different bobbin dimensions, and everything. So already we've got three very different pickups from one another: the Stratocaster, the Telecaster bridge, and the Telecaster neck. Now let's go ahead and put, I'm going to solder wire on here, like the 12 inches of wire that we use to hook it up to the guitar. And then we're also going to show you some further differences, because now, from now on, they're nothing the same. Okay, so next big difference here. It's not a big difference, but it is for a definite reason. So here is our Stratocaster wires, right? Hooked up, makes sense, normal. And that almost basically looks like a completed Stratocaster bridge pickup, but it's not done yet. We've got to do one more task that is necessary. So this is, if you'll notice, is got a long lead on the negative, and this has got a long lead on the negative. This is because of two other fundamental differences between Telecaster and Stratocaster pickups. So before we make use of those two long leads, let's go over and magnetize all of these pickups. Okay, so if you'll notice, we went ahead and magnetized them, so now they are magnetized. Now, this is where things start to get interesting because we have a couple of fundamental differences. Now, first of all, let's take the neck pickup and get him out of the way. At this point, now that it's magnetized, we're going to go ahead and put the cover on it because they have covers. So we carefully put that in between there without cutting the coil. He goes on like that. All right. And then we'll bend his little tabs down like so. And then this is where the long wire comes into play, because we have to, at this point, ground the cover so that when you touch it, it doesn't make noise. All right, I'll take our little snips here and clean that off. All right, so now we have a completed, except for wax potted. We haven't wax potted it yet, but we have a completed neck Telecaster pickup. All right, now that that's out of the way, we want to talk about, this is where things get really interesting between the bridge pickup of a Stratocaster versus the bridge pickup of a Telecaster. Okay, so what we have here is an inductance meter. Inductance is what basically measures the overall efficiency of a coil to do its thing. So we've got a magnetized coil with the magnetized core, right? And we've got it hooked up to the meter. Now, watch what happens when I add the base plate. 2.22 Henrys. Let's go ahead and put the copper-plated steel base plate on and watch it rise up. It went up 0.1 Henrys. That does not seem like a lot, but that is everything. That's actually a fair percentage of the entire inductance of the pickup. This right here, this guy right here, and the addition of this plate to the bottom of the pickup is probably one of the biggest factors in the tone of a Telecaster bridge pickup. I'll show you something interesting. So this is actually got a lot more winds on it, so that's why our starting off inductance is much higher. So we've got 3.2 Henrys. Now watch what were to happen if we were to add a steel base plate to this. 3.26? 3.53. Way up. So it's a percentage of the whole thing, right? So adding this, and people, just FYI, this is a steel base plate that has been plated with copper. A lot of folks think that it is a copper base plate, but copper's not magnetic, so it would not change the inductance of the pickup if you were to add copper. It has to be steel. So let's talk about why this was here on a Telecaster. All right, we're going to talk about why this has this base plate as we solder this on. So the long wire on this one, which is a difference, comes into play now. So the reason these are this way wasn't actually originally to do with tone. It was basically a mounting solution. To mount it to a lap steel guitar was different than mounting it to the guitar. And so they needed something to thread into. Now, obviously, when they went to the Stratocaster later, I suppose they could have done it then too, right? But when they went to the Stratocaster later, they evolved it to cutting the holes correctly so you could thread a wire or thread a screw, a 632 screw, into that hole. And so that's how we do it now, right? So basically what you're looking at here is the difference and the evolution from the mounting solution for a Telecaster bridge pickup evolving to the mounting solution for a Stratocaster bridge pickup. And this then would just have a cover on it. That's actually one of our custom, whoops. This would have a cover on it, so that would actually be one of our custom Stratocaster covers with a paisley. We engrave on the laser. And you can see that this is one of the things that is difficult if you don't have a good soldering iron. So now, the end result, if we were to wind these exactly the same, we would have a higher percentage of inductance here than we would here, or a higher inductance here than we would here, and that's why they sound different, coupled with the fact that the dimension of the coil is actually different. There's no real, it's not like they did a bunch of research to say, oh, we should put a steel plate on the bottom, and then we should copper plate it, and we should do all this stuff. That wasn't really the R&D that went into the difference in the tone between the guitars. It was actually just a evolution of manufacturing when it came to the two guitars. So obviously this one came first, then this one came second, and that's the difference. Of course, we have over here our neck pickup that has a cover on it, and then when they went to this design and completely engineered a completely new thing, they came up with a regular plastic cover, mounted straight with the screws and the coil springs. So it was really just an evolution in design. You know, I think a lot of people want to put a lot of weight into, well, we were sitting around in a room trying to decide the best tone, and so we made this difference with blah, blah, and really that wasn't it. It was really just an evolution in manufacturing. And of course, the end result is two completely legendary instruments that we base everything on these guitars, right? Like this is everything. Well, of course, the Les Paul too, but for a Fender person especially, I mean, this is the backbone of a lot of stuff. And so understanding the difference between the two, it's just kind of fun. It's more historical than it is tone, right? We can do some fun stuff. We can put a steel base plate on the bottom of a Stratocaster pickup. We have done that. We can do that. It's cool. Honestly, it doesn't really matter. Are you a Tele guy or are you a Strat guy? This is the difference. Of course, you could get into a whole bunch of other things like break angle and tremolo, you know, break angle of the bridge and tremolo and that sort of stuff. But when we're specifically talking about the pickups themselves, the construction is so different, even though a lot of folks kind of lump them in as being very similar. It's a very interesting thing. I think about it all the time, obviously, because we make these every day. We make lots of them. More Tele pickups than Strat pickups, which is kind of funny. So there you go. If you want to check out some Strat pickups or some Tele pickups, they're actually on sale this week. Go to DylanTalksTone and check it out. If you have any questions about how pickups are made or anything like that, it was fun to kind of do it this way to show you the step-by-step differences between them. But if you have any other questions like that, or about those things, or about the materials, or how they're made, or anything like that, get in the comments and let me know. Thanks for hanging out. This has been fun. We'll see you in the next video.